All right. What's up, everybody? I am calling this for the moment W2 WTH. Let me be clear. I'm calling this for the moment WTH Wednesday, which stands for What the Hell Wednesday, as in what the hell happened, what the hell is going on, what the hell we getting into. That I feel like what the hell generally covers a lot of the things that we're discussing in news, politics, sports, pop culture. I want to discuss it all with you all, and I'm hoping to do this every Wednesday, 3 o'clock. I should say 3 o'clock Pacific time or specific, depending on how you get down. 3 o'clock Pacific time every week, which would be 6 p.m. if you're here on the East Coast. So I want to thank you all for coming, for hanging out with me. I told you the last time I did a live that I was tinkering with doing something every week, doing something more regular, consistent, so that we could chop it up, talk about what's going on in these streets. And it's definitely a lot going on right now. That feels like just our perpetual existence here in America. So for those who are joining, make sure you make yourself known in the chat. Ask me whatever questions you have, as we discuss things, or if you just generally just have something on your mind, make sure that you ask me. And of course, while you're here, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Get this hair out of my way. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And that way you can keep up whenever I do these lives or some of my other content. Really happy on this politics front with a episode that I have this week. Roy Wood Jr. is the guest. I guess technically it could be last week's podcast because Roy was on last week. But Roy Wood Jr. is my guest. He was great. We talked for over an hour about baseball, politics, media. We ran across the gamut. And Roy got jokes. And this is probably my favorite question I've asked somebody in a long time. And that was if we were having like a UFC style fight, this is what I asked Roy. If we were having like a UFC style fight between a Waffle House employee and a Spirit Airlines employee, who would win? He went with Waffle House. And so, you all, I'm sure, can chime in with your opinions, but it was just a really, really fun conversation that I had with Roy. He's great. Now, my guest for this week's episode of Spolitics, which drops tomorrow. If y'all not already subscribing to Spolitics, it's available on iHeart, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. If you aren't already a Spolitics subscriber, become one, become a listener. My guest on tomorrow's podcast is Kenny Mayne, my homie from ESPN. Kenny, one of the funniest dudes, one of the greatest storytellers. So make sure you check out that podcast. I also, within that same podcast, I have some commentary about the NCAA transfer portal, because the portal is portaling right now. We see so many college players have entered themselves in the portal. And so I wanted to address that and give you guys some factoids so that you can understand that. So once again, thank you for joining me for this What the Hell Wednesday. And make sure you hit that subscribe button for this YouTube page. I tend to give you a lot more content and just kick it with y'all a lot more often. I know right now y'all looking at me like, why are you dressed like you just had a court date? I did not have a court date. That is not why I'm dressed like this. Normally, no, I do not show up to these things in makeup. But today I did because I had something that I had to shoot before I came to join and do this YouTube live. So I don't want your expectations to get out of whack. I will not be looking like this every week. Okay. This is maybe some weeks I might, just depending on what the schedule is looking like, but don't expect this Jamel every week. Expect hoodie Jamel, whose hair is probably up in a ponytail. And, that's I'm wearing my best sweats, my cleanest sweats for you guys every single week. So thanks for joining me. Again, hit the subscribe button on this YouTube page. We got a lot that I definitely want to talk about. Let's start with Liberation Day, because apparently, based off our presidential administration, what President Trump has said today in the Rose Garden, where he made this scintillating announcement about all these new tariffs that are about to take place. It will be tariffs on, I believe it was like something like 150 countries. And you know what that means. And in case you didn't know what it means, in case you're one of the people who didn't explain how tariffs work, tariffs, the cost of goods, of when goods are inflated by these tariffs, it gets passed to the customer. So that means you, I, everybody on this chat, we will be paying more things for a variety of items. This is like the biggest tariff that we've seen since the 1930s. I think, it's called Liberation Day because we about to be liberated from our money. We about to be liberated from our wallet. And in response, as you all see, the stock market, the after-hour stock market is already doing its thing, which means it's plummeting. So congratulations, America. You really did this. You really and truly did this. I think, when it was election season, so many of us, I don't know about you, tried to explain to people what these tariffs would mean for our economy. In case you haven't figured out the full puzzle here, there is a $4 trillion tax cut that is coming for the richest Americans, And that means they have to fund this tax cut some kind of way. So this whole Doge madness, the government efficiency, is not about finding waste and fraud. It's about finding money to fuel and pay for this tax cut for people who we need to be taxing. And I read something interesting today about how, because of the cutbacks that are going to the Internal Revenue Service, that we probably will be missing out on $400 million in revenue. America, we broke. We don't even, I realized the debt was debting before Trump took office for sure. But the way this man exploded the debt in his first term should have let you know what was going to happen the second time. And so it's just like, what are we even doing? What are we even doing here? So everything is about to be hella expensive. Restaurants have already said that, hey, the price of the brick is going up, to quote The Wire. So I don't know about y'all, but I'm about to be real tight with my money because, as it is, going outside is expensive. Breathing is about to be expensive. We basically have become the nation of Spirit Airlines. Like, if don't act like none of y'all have never taken Spirit Airlines, but when you take Spirit, they essentially charge you for just taking in air. Okay. Yeah, the flight might be $8.55, but by the time they're finished adding on the price for a carry-on, the price for water, the price for this and that, you basically pay for a regular flight. Well, almost. It's a little bit cheaper. But at the end of the day, it's like, that's what our existence is about to be. Some of these items that we're accustomed. I hope y'all stocked up. Because computers, devices, everything is about to be through the roof. So yeah, as it was already with this egg crisis, we were getting charged a ton. I don't know if you guys noticed, but when you went to order, eggs at restaurants, that price went up. So again, the business is never going to assume the cost. You and I are. We're going to pay more for this. So thank God we just went to Costco the other day because, boy, it's about to be tight out in here. And as always, as we do this live, I'll definitely take some of your questions and some of your comments. Oh, here's an interesting comment. Look at this. This is from B. You have 41 live viewers. First of all, don't shade me. It's now almost 100. Meanwhile, Candace Owens' live stream episode has 43,000 live viewers, and that's normally on the lower side. Well, take your ass over there then. Ain't nobody asked you to be here. This is a voluntary experience. No one asked you to be here. Go watch her. I don't care. At any rate, unfortunately, America is about to learn a very hard lesson about what our ignorance costs. We're about to find out in real time about what life is going to be like. So the tariffs are our top story today with Donald Trump. And this is going to affect a lot of small business owners in particular, like the larger scale businesses. They're still passing the price, or they're still passing, the tariffs down to the customer. But a lot of the big businesses, they can absorb a lot more than a small business can. But imagine what this is going to do to some of your local businesses. This is going to sink some people, depending on how long this lasts. And for those of you in certain industries, especially if you're in aluminum, if you're in steel, like this is really going to be a bad situation. Got another comment here. Damon, Thanks for joining me again, Damon. I know you are regularly on here. I'm an engineer. My company builds power plants. This is going to affect our business. Yes, because you know what happens when companies start, it costs them more to do what they do, costs them more to do their business. They pass it down to the customer. And if the customer doesn't respond, because we're about to get real tight with our wallet already, certain economists have been noticing trends where we're spending less on things. We get tighter with our wallets, then they have to lay off people. So it becomes like this really cyclical effect. So these tariffs are going to impact everybody, whether you're a business owner, a consumer, your household is going to be dramatically impacted. All right, since we're in politics, and I didn't want to stay here too long because I want to get to the main topic. You guys may have seen it on the topic bar talking about the lack of Black men who are in college. I want that to be what I call the big topic, the robust thing that we're going to dive into today. But obviously, one of the other big stories of this week has been Cory Booker, senator from New Jersey. He's somebody that on my previous podcast, Jamel Hillis Unbothered, I had as a guest. Very sharp, very thoughtful person. And he just broke a record. He held the Senate floor for 25 hours. It was a record. Usually this is not quite technically it's not a filibuster, but it's filibuster-esque. And so essentially Cory Booker shut down the Senate proceedings because the senator can take the floor for as long as they want. And he stopped official business by speaking for 25 straight hours about the harm this administration is doing to citizens, about how in this moment we all need to stand up, find our courage, and that we're really into this together. Now, I ain't gonna lie, I didn't listen to all 25 hours because I'm not crazy, but from what I saw of it, I think this was a courageous thing to do. There has been a question about, there's some people who criticized it by saying this was just political theater. It was. And you know what? People respond to political theater. But it was also, I think, a encouraging moment if you're a Democrat, because the reason the party's approval ratings are as low as they are is because people feel like they're not fighting back. People feel like they're not engaged. They feel like they're not doing anything. And I realize it's kind of an unfair burden because a lot of people who didn't even vote for the Democrats, who didn't vote for Kamala Harris or didn't vote for some of the Democrats that were running in their local areas, now they're looking to them to save them. And, a lot of people felt really let down by this. And so, or let down by this party. And there's been a lot of conversation about how this party needs to revamp itself following losing this presidential election, despite consistently for the last 40 or so years, the Democrats have held the popular policies. And as even though I think, what is it? They went through a span where they had the presidency for 12 or 16 years. They still seem like they weren't able to get over this hump of perennially having a Democratic presidential, candidate in office, if you will. And so to lose to Trump twice, people feel like it's a reflection on the party and how they need to redirect. So nevertheless, I think Cory Booker, what he did, gave the Democratic Party a shot in the arm. And I think people out there are angry. And this is a time for Democrats to really take advantage of the fact that people want to see action. And by seeing Cory Booker do what he did, it sends an incredible bat signal. It sends a bit of life to the people that support the Democratic Party so that they know that they are not in it alone. Then to flash this comment up here. This is from April Morgan. Can we all just say they are crying about the Democrats? The Democrats are not cutting off Social Security. The Democrats who are these people crazy? The public. April, you must be doing this. Let me take this out. You must be speaking into this because I couldn't quite make out what you were trying to say. Here, I'll take this one from Pretty RJ. Cory Booker gave the Democratic Party leadership look what happened in Wisconsin and Florida. They need to be ashamed of themselves. Well, in Florida, there was a special election for Matt Gaetz' seat, and it would have been an opportunity for the Democrats to take the House, but they lost the special election in Florida. But Wisconsin, where Elon Musk poured hundreds of millions of dollars, or no, it wasn't hundreds of millions. I'm sorry. Let me correct myself. But he poured a significant amount of money into trying to win over the Wisconsin Supreme Court. It didn't work. And I just don't understand why Elon Musk ain't been arrested for interfering with an election. But that's just me, because what he did was illegal. At any rate, getting back to things is that I think Cory Booker gave people a moment, and it was a moment that people needed. And if you listen to a lot of his speech, it was really breathtaking. What he did, by the way, physically is crazy. 25 straight hours. I have a hard time talking for 25 straight minutes. I can't imagine talking for 25 straight hours. My man, did he pee? Does anybody know? Like, I mean, I read somewhere that he refused to answer the question about whether or not he had a diaper, but I just had a lot of questions about how he was able to accomplish this. He said he hadn't had any water, any fluids, for like well over 24 hours. And it was just, that was a stunning performance. But most importantly, beyond just providing people with a moment, he broke a record that was held by Strom Thurmond. Strom Thurmond is one of the most racist people to ever hold a congressional office, top 5 races, and he ain't number 5. And Strom Thurmond, he held the floor for 24 hours because he opposed the Civil Rights Act. So it was good that we now are past that unfortunate, Senate history, if you will. So it was a lot of people who are critical and say, well, it didn't really accomplish something. I disagree. I think that what Cory Booker did definitely accomplished something, because I think people need to feel like the Democratic Party is out here fighting. So that was certainly a moment. All right, now let's get to the main thing. Okay. Main thing I want to discuss, and shout out to my boy Teray, because I saw him post this on his Instagram, and it really made me want to do some more research, to do a deep dive into what was happening. So there was a recent, I guess, a recent article that was reported about how at Howard University right now, the New York Times came out with this story at Harvard University, or not Harvard, excuse me, Howard University. Let me get that correct. Howard University, only 19% of the students there are Black men. There was this incredible story that was done by the New York Times about how there is a significant gender gap in general in college, but where it's most significant is between Black men and Black women. And there's a lot of reasons that are cited for this. I've heard some people talk about it, and I wanted to talk about it further with you all, because it's not just at Howard that this is an issue. This is an issue at other universities as well. It's not just an issue on HBCUs. It's an issue at, again, other universities. I want you guys to take a look at this. This is a story that was done in NPR. NPR did this story, and this was last October. And here are some numbers that I want you all to chew on. Right now, the number of Black men enrolled at HBCUs is the lowest it's been since 1976. In fact, across the board, Black men now only account for 26% of the student at HBCUs. Back in 1976, that figure was 38%. So this is like a continual dive that is happening, and where you've seen it show up the most is at Black colleges and Black universities. Black colleges, historically Black colleges, and Black universities. There's in general just a gender gap overall, as I mentioned, between women and men when it comes to education. There are more women in college right now than men. Now, when it comes to Black men in college, the percentage across the board, not just, again, at HBCU, right now, Black men account for about 26.5% of college enrollment, compared to white men, which is 44.3%. So you see that there's a big gap. Overall, there's a trend between men and women in terms of not going to college. And there's a big gap, especially between Black women and Black men. So what I want to know from you all, I have my own thoughts, which I'm going to share in the moment. Why do you think that is? Why do you think the number of Black men attending college appears to be on the decline, and especially on the decline when it comes to historically Black colleges and universities. Now, the number one reason that I've heard, at least, according to those in social media, is debt. Now, we know college is extremely expensive. College is the most expensive it's ever been in history right now. And there's that kind of debt, especially when you hear these testimonies. Joe Biden, I think he wiped away about $170 billion in student loan debt. And when you look at some of the horror stories and testimonies that we heard from a lot of people, number one, these are people whose lives they felt like were being destroyed by having like 6-figure college debt. It was serious. And so when you hear those type of stories, which are kind of prevalent on the internet, that, hey, you go to college, you're looking at possibly 6 figures in debt, that's enough to scare anybody off, man or woman. And so, there's a lot of men who are thinking about the kind of financial freedom they want as adults, and going to college and incurring all that debt just ain't in the plan. And so that's one factor that has been noticed. Another one is that because in lieu of college, a lot of Black men are opting to go to trade school instead, where, look, anybody out there, especially if you got a house right now, I own a house, me and my husband, we own a house. Call a plumber and see what's up. That plumber rate ain't no joke. If you in HVAC right now, congratulations, because you picked a very lucrative career. Matter of fact, for those of you out there who watch Real Housewives, I watch Real Housewives of Atlanta. I'm not ashamed. Y'all can't shame me. Yes, I watch it. Shamia, one of the castmates of Real Housewives of Atlanta, her husband is, I think, worth something like $300-400 million because he got the HVAC contract for Atlanta's airport. And that brother got paid. All right. So we know that there's a lot of trade school careers that are highly lucrative, and some Black men are choosing to do that. But when you look at the percentage of Black men who are in trade school, it's higher than it is at college, but it ain't that much higher. So that still doesn't explain the entire reason we no longer are seeing a wave or an increased numbers of Black men that are going to college. One thing that I've noticed as somebody, I went to Michigan State. College was one of the best times of my life. I also was fortunate enough to get an academic scholarship. And I got an academic scholarship, should say, that covered tuition and fees. I got a Pell Grant because I was poor. Or I should say I was poor. My mama was poor. And so I was able to get a Pell Grant, some other grants, got a couple other little smaller scholarships. So long story short, when I left Michigan State, I may have owed like $10,000 or $15,000 in college debt. That was it. I took out like maybe one loan and I was fine. That's an unusual story. I realize that. But there are still other ways you can finance college. Like, as I mentioned, I got a scholarship. My scholarship covered the bulk of my higher education. So you still can get scholarships, you got grants, you got all those different things that I mentioned. But it feels like the appeal of college, Black men don't even feel that. And so I'm curious to hear from Black men, from everybody, about why we think that college no longer seems appealing to Black men. All right, I got a comment right here. This is from Amos. Easy. 1, Black men don't feel they can build a network to get the value back like it used to happen. 2, they press that the college experience doesn't matter and you could get it anywhere. Okay. So this is an issue I have about the narrative that's on college. One thing that I've noticed in talking to young people who are fresh out of college age, is, especially those who are still in college, a lot of Black people, I must just say young people, this is not a racial thing. A lot of young people come to college and they don't have a plan. They don't have a plan. They come there, sometimes they just kind of throw a dart and pick a major, or sometimes they do have an idea of what they want to do with the rest of their lives or what they want to study. But once they get in that major, they realize there's a lot more to it. I was very lucky because I was a journalism major. I knew from the 10th grade that I wanted to pursue a career in journalism. And what would be interesting to me is on campus was when I would run into a lot of engineer majors. And a lot of the engineering majors, they picked engineering, at least the ones that I ran into that I knew, and I realized this is anecdotal. They picked engineering because when you looked at the list of professions that paid the most money when you got out of school, engineering was in that top 1, 2, or 3. It was in the top 5 almost consistently. And they picked it for the money. And within 2 years, they were miserable because unless you love it like that, I get it. Some people don't really need to have a career that they feel like personally fulfills them. They're okay with just going to a job, not being passionate about it. They're okay with that. But as for me and mine, as we like to say, I needed to do something that I loved. And I always tell young people, if you love it, you will make money at it, regardless of statistically how much money they say you're supposed to make. Like when I came out of college, the average salary for a journalist was $19,000 a year. So I was hustling real backwards. Okay. I went to college, paying 50, 60 grand to make $19,000 a year, which mathematically you're just like, that makes no sense to do that. But I did it. And I've never made $19,000 a year. I made 22, but I ain't never made 19. So, but what I got out of college wasn't just about what I learned. And I learned some amazing things. It did pay off in terms of networking. I worked at my college newspaper. A lot of my classmates and colleagues that I worked with, they got great, big, awesome jobs at different newspapers and television stations. They went on to really become, the top professionals in our business. So that's like networking, and that's key. And so as we run into each other throughout our careers, we try to look out for each other and that sort of thing. And not just networking within my major, but just networking, period. Knowing people that I went to school with that own businesses, that are CEOs, like you got all that going to college. And so this idea that you just come there and you just study and you go home, that's not everything college gives you. Not to mention what you learn from a maturity standpoint, because, for the most part, you're on your own and you're figuring out how the world really works in real time. It gives you great real world experience. You know what it's like to be broke. You know what it's like not to have enough money in your account, because you usually go through that in college. So as much as we talk about whether or not the education matches, sort of what you make as a professional, because we all know people who started off in college as a major or graduated in a particular major and they're not in that right now. But I bet you, even if they're not in the major that they studied in at college, they still saw the benefit, the social benefit of college. And not just socials. College theoretically is where you start, or continue, I should say, to expand and develop your critical thinking skills. And ask yourself right now how much we need critical thinking skills in this country. And no, college is not the only place that you learn this. But what I am saying is that a lot of times I think the narrative on college has become a lot more negative, is because we don't also sell the additional benefits of what college can bring you. All right, I'm going to take another comment here. This is from, looks like Jamel Thomas, maybe said just like mine. As a Black man, a lot of brothers aren't going to college today due to a lack of direction and accountability. Or they're looking for a Black woman to mammy like their mother, because there will be one out there, sadly. What do you guys think about that? I'll flash that up again. He thinks that this is an issue of lack of direction and accountability, and not really one about finances, not really one about feeling like the value of education is not worth it. Listen, we know that young Black men are facing a lot of challenges. That's nothing new under the sun, be it economic challenges, family challenges, just waking up and being Black challenges, just existing challenges. And, certainly I think to some degree there is a lot more direction that needs, and emotional support that needs to be provided to young, Black boys. I'm not going to call them young Black men, because I think to some degree that, that allows us to dehumanize them by always making it seem like they're older and more grown than they actually are. But for young Black boys in particular, they need a different kind of support. And so I don't think there's any question about that. And then, when you're a young person, you don't know what you don't know. But I wouldn't blame this on just a lack of accountability or a lack of direction. I can definitely see, because depending on where you grew up and how you grew up, there are young Black boys who don't see themselves in a lot of things that are immediately around them. And by, I mean, a lot of positive things. Like the number of the number of Black men, period, who have told me over the years that they never had a Black male teacher, or they only had one or two, like, they can count on one hand, just not a lot of Black male teachers that they were exposed to as they came through the educational system is staggering. It's really, really staggering. And they may need to see that in order to believe, like, this is a pathway for me, is that maybe not necessarily being a teacher, but that there's somebody regularly who tells them, who pours into them and tells them that this college is something feasible for you, and feasible for you whether you play sports or not. Because, that's the other thing that's extremely troubling. And I run into this, a lot, obviously being in sports, is the number of young Black boys who really think they're going to be professional. And I don't want to be a dream killer who really think they're going to be a professional athlete. And I never want to be a dream killer, but you have a better chance of being struck by lightning than being in the NBA. And that's true. You have a better chance of being struck by lightning than being in the NBA. And you should definitely use athletics as a tool to get you some other things in your life, a tool to pay for college, a tool for educational attainment, period. And maybe even post-college, let's say you're lucky enough to play overseas, maybe use it to see the world. You can use sports as a tool, but sports, my concern and fear sometimes is that sports feels like psychologically young Black boys feel like that's the only thing that they can do, that's the only thing that they're good at. And so I'm concerned with the self-esteem. I'm concerned with them not feeling uplifted enough that college, being a doctor, being a lawyer is something that seems unrealistic to them. So, this is I think a concerning statistic. Like to find out that Howard University, of all places, only has 19%, only 19% of the attendees are Black men. There is something deeply wrong with that picture. All right, I'm gonna go to another comment here. All right, this is from Simone Peters. Both my brothers, male cousins, and nephews are simply uninterested in college. Every woman in my family went to college, and some went to grad school. That seems to be a very common story. Now, again, uninterested is different than don't have the finances to go, or prefer trade school. Why are young Black boys uninterested in college? Like, what is uninteresting to them about college? Is it because and maybe this part isn't sold enough. You do realize how many women are on college campuses, right? Women who are trying to achieve the same thing that you are. This may be your greatest opportunity to run into a whole body of women that are all out there trying to get degrees, trying to advance, trying to create some level of financial and upward mobility for themselves. You're around them all in college. Seems like a pretty good place to date and to mingle. I'm not saying you should only go to college for that, but if we're just going to take the most shallowest of reasons to go to college, is where the ladies are. Okay, definitely. So, I think in educators, especially if we have any educators that are out there in the chat, understand, like, I think they see a different vantage point than most of us do. A lot of them talk about how they see certain educational tendencies among young Black boys when they're in high school, showing that lack of interest, that lack of focus, those kinds of things. They show up long before, because if you're not interested in going to college when you're at a certain point, you probably never were, because, more than likely, if you were trying to get good grades and trying to reach, some level of college, you were trying to get good grades because it was something that you saw in your future. And if you weren't, then that means that your belief in what you could do academically kind of probably disappeared a long time ago. And here's another comment. This is from Aubrey. Black boys are not, I assume you mean championed, are not championed in the classroom. They don't have black men as teachers. I went back to school to earn my bachelor's at age 46 and went on to earn my master's in theology at 59. Now, do we see that as a problem? That black boys just aren't championed and supported in classroom settings? I could believe there's a lot of truth to that. And certainly, as I just said a moment ago, that there's not a lot of instances where black boys are seeing black men who are teaching. And so that in itself has an impact. And I think, because I've also seen many people comment on this in the chat. They talk about how the fact that black women are going through the same thing. So why does education matter more to us? Why are we constantly striving to get an education? You look at the number of black women who have bachelor degrees and master's degrees, it far outpaces black men. We have seen education as our pathway for a long time. Most of us were kind of raised that way and groomed that way to think that way. So how is it that we're receiving the message and black men and black boys aren't? Like, what is happening there where there's that disconnect? I'll go to some more of your comments. How's the return on the investment? It's not like they can go out there and build empires. You can't even build a business college is for black athletes to try to go pro. Not sure what you're trying to say there. Here, I'll check another one. All right, Quincy, when I was deciding which college I would go to, Tuskegee brought me down there on a campus visit. The tuition was two times that of in-state tuition at University of Tennessee, and the facilities were vastly inferior. That's going to a HBCU. And we know that's an issue for a lot of HBCUs. They don't have the same facilities, that kind of thing. This is from Sleezus. Because men are expected to use their bodies and not their minds. I think there's some truth to that, for sure. And let's see. Okay, this is Michael V. Proctor. I went to Medgar Evers College in Brooklyn, and it was 20% men and 80% women. So when I briefly lived at the News and Observer in Raleigh, North Carolina. And when I was there, I lived there from 97 to 99, 1997 to 99. And when I was there, the North Carolina Central, one of the HBCUs in the area, the ratio of men to women was 21-1, meaning for every man on campus, there was 21 women. And I thought that stat was staggering. I was like, 21-1, are you kidding me? But it spoke to what was, I guess, an unfortunate problem, definitely in our community. Wasn't an unfortunate problem for that 1-21, right? Because if you were a man on campus, man, if you were striking out on that campus, I don't know what to tell you. But at any rate, I think the way that the messaging is for young black boys and men is an issue, because a lot of times, black boys and men, they are lauded for their physical traits. They are lauded for, we see it all the time in sports. I'll just use a sports analogy that I'm sure everybody can relate to. How many times do we see black quarterbacks actually praised for their intellect and for their knowledge of the game? Doesn't happen a lot. It's concentrations on their physical gifts, the fact that they can, run the 40 in this time, that they can, do other physical things, but they're rarely praised for being students at the game. Meanwhile, we see white quarterbacks praised for that all the time. And I think to some degree, that plays out in other things that aren't related to sports. Is that, the intellect, the smartness of a black man is not necessarily, it's nowhere close. It's not even not necessarily, it's the praise that one receives for being smart as a black man pales in comparison to what they receive being a good athlete. It's not even close. And if anything, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, cuss me out or whatever, if anything, smart black men are ridiculed a lot of times. And that happens within our own community. It doesn't just happen to men, but I think especially to men being smart, being about books, being about your business is not something that's praised. I grew up in inner city Detroit. And so, I saw this all the time. Yeah, like you looked at the honor roll every year filled with girls, boys, not so much. And I think some of that has to do with how they've been socialized, what they've been taught to value, and even in their own homes, what they were praised for. Here, I'll go to another comment. This is from Eric Tillman. Expectations are different for Black boys versus Black girls. Then Black boys are picked off early and discouraged from educational achievement in elementary school. I kind of tend to agree, is that it starts really early. I think women are generally encouraged to be smart, we're not, at least in the company of women, like we don't take I never remember an instance where any of my girls was making fun of one of our other girls because she had a 3.5. Like that never happened. Like ever. If anything, it was like, girl, keep going, or I'm gonna outdo you or something like that. But I don't know, and a lot of men are in this chat. Y'all tell me, that's your community. But my sense on outside looking in was that. So is that no, among their peers, I didn't certainly see a lot of, doesn't mean it didn't happen. I didn't see a lot of, hey man, that's dope that you got that you got an A on that. Can't say I saw a lot of that. I saw them getting praised for other things. Can't say I saw a lot of that, and that's part of it. All right, here's another comment from Sal Tessio. Girls don't go for the good guys. They like the bad boys. They have the nerve to come at the smart dude later. Well, you have 3 baby daddies and welfared up at this point. Move around. Sal Tessio, I mean this so very diplomatically. You might need some therapy. And might need a little bit of it. Just a tad. You had a whole lot of stereotyping in that. And then, by the way, that's a misnomer. Girls don't go for the good guys. We do go for the good guys. Depends on when we meet them and if they're good, at that point. But, I think, but I will say this. I'll take this from that, is that I think that there is, some part of, young boys as they're coming up, you think about the traits that are attractive to young girls or attractive to your peers. And maybe I will say the onus is on us as girls and women to be more vocal about the fact that we like smart dudes. I love a smart dude. Love one. Okay. One of the things that attracted me to my husband, beyond his looks and his sense of humor, this is early on, was the fact that he was really smart. And he was smart. He liked to read. He also, like we, one of the corny things that we do is that when we're at home, we play Jeopardy. So like we watch Jeopardy and see who gets the most answers. And I can tell you, he be killing my ass on them geography and science questions. That ain't never been my testimony. And he be killing me. So yeah, I think as women, because men tend to follow our lead in certain things in terms of what we like, that if it probably would go a long way, that if you saw, young girls and, women talking about and hyping up the intellect of a man as being something important. So yeah, I mean, I can definitely get that. All right, here's another one. R&R, skills and trade. See China leading. Oh no. See, this is where you're wrong, RR. See, that's the other thing too, is that over in China, and I can say this as somebody who's been to China, is like they're all about education. See, the skills and the trades, that's my other concern too about pushing people to go to trade school, is that a lot of the things that they're pushing to trade school will eventually become phased out by artificial intelligence. In China, they are very much phasing out the physical parts of labor for artificial intelligence. They have a completely different approach, Japan as well, to education. See, they're encouraging, and in India as well, they want their kids to go to college. They want their kids to get the highest level of education possible. Only here in the States. And if we're taking it broader beyond this conversation about why in our community, in the Black community, are we seeing young Black boys become so disinterested in college? Understand that they realize in these countries, where the battle really lies is that, of course, in India, where, you still very much have a class system that's at play. And that's an entirely different discussion. But yeah, they're encouraging their kids to follow educational pursuits that do not involve physical labor. So no, they are not pushing them to go to trade school because they understand the technology that's coming and how a lot of that is being phased out. So that's sort of the other issue too, because what we don't want is to have a large swath of Black boys and men who pursue physical-based professions when those are the ones that tend to or are going away first. Detroit, where I'm from, is one of the cities that was part of the Great Migration. A lot of Black men from the South came to the North for jobs at the auto plant. And one thing that was definitely true in Detroit is that it was very much considered a career path. It was a popular career path to leave college or to leave high school, graduate from high school, or leave high school and go and work in the plant. That is no longer a reality. People certainly still do it, but when you think about what long-term future that has, it's a short one. It is definitely a short one. So, that's another reason I don't want to see young Black boys and men fall so behind, because the rest of the world is going in a different direction. And that is going to be, that could have a dramatic influence. And then let's just and talk about wealth building too. I don't know if in my lifetime, if most of us will ever see that wealth gap, the racial wealth gap close. We probably won't. And as a result of that, when you have such a small percentage of Black men in college, that doesn't close the racial wealth gap. That only widens it. And so, we're looking at the lack of wealth building in our community being really at risk if these numbers continue to look the way that they do. Here's another comment. This is from Oral Fixation. Clever. I saw where a guy theorized enrollment was down for young men across the board because they were seeing less of themselves in the institutions, making them feel out of place. This is a really good comment, and I want to stay here for a minute because I've heard the same thing. And, so this is what I would say to that. When education became more open for women, because for us, it wasn't, right? Do you think we saw ourselves in college? No. Or in the ways that you need to see yourselves in these things. That's not to say that that's not to say that wasn't problematic for some women, because it clearly was. The thing is, and this is something that I think men across society are struggling with, is that when they become less centered, because we see this racially as well, that there's a psychological struggle that happens. There are, if men go to college and they see women and all these women everywhere, and they feel like, hey, where do I fit in? What that tells me is that you're used to being the center of it. So what does that tell you? Because, this is something that Black people have to deal with frequently. We are used to going into rooms where we're the only one. We're used to going into spaces where it's not a lot of us. And we got to figure out a way to adapt and still get in that space and get what we came to get. And so that's what I would say to these men. And you're right. This is, and I said this at the top of this, of me diving into this topic, is that this is not just germane to Black boys and men. There are less men, period, going to college. And a lot of the reason I do think is that we are seeing such a strong anti-intellectual push that's coming from the top levels of our society, from our government, from people that are in spaces that have huge followings. They're very down talking into intellectualism. Because what's funny to me is that the people telling you don't waste your time on education got theirs. A lot of these people. So you have to ask yourself, why are they telling me this? If it was so not worth it, why do they have it? I saw Elon Musk say that college wasn't really worth it. Oh, really? So why'd you go to Stanford? I'm just curious. If it's not worth it, seems like there's something to that. So I've seen Senator Ted Cruz, who went to Harvard, say similar things. And from a political standpoint, I think part of the reason that some of the politicians that represent certain ideals say those things is because they know that a population, and this is, again, not to suggest that you only learn how to critically think in college, but a population is so much easier to control when they're not educated. So much easier. Which brings me back to the trend of less men going to college. So one place this is showing up at big time is in dating, because the gap between college educated men, or the gap between college educated women and what's happening in the dating pool has really muddied things up, because there's some very interesting statistics. I'm gonna see if I can pull this study up about the number of single women that are predicted. I think it was by 2030 or something like that. The number of single women that are predicted to be in this nation by then. Okay, I think I pulled it up. I got it. Okay, so more according to let me show you guys this so you don't you don't think I'm lying to you here, about the number of women that are predicted to be single by 2030. It's like one of the largest sort of disparities that we've seen in history. And I have to say, like, when I first saw this, I was like, that can't be right. But nevertheless, it is right. So let me pull this stat up for you so that you can see how this impacts things. Okay, here it is. Let's see. Boom. 45% of women will be single by 2030. 45%? That is insane. I mean, let me be the first to say, ain't nothing wrong with being single. Nothing at all. So I'm not here to stigmatize or down talk single people at all. Live your best life. And this, by the way, if you want to know the age group, this is 45% of women ages 25 to 54 will be single. A lot of this is just because a lot of things about our society has changed. Like, one, women aren't really getting married young like that anymore. The other thing too is that there's a lot of very careful planning going on when it comes to having kids. A lot of women do not want kids, and they certainly, if they do want kids, they certainly do not want them young. So that also is why more women are single. Now, the more education that you receive, it has an impact on how you see yourself. You're more independent. You're more career focused. That becomes, kind of what's driving you. But that also means that relationships kind of can take a back seat. And so as women become more educated in our society, and as we continue to, go into any manner of different professional fields, as we continue to do that, then there's a lot of and this is the other thing that's also true, is that in most cases, not all cases, college educated women want college educated men. They typically, again, not 100%, typically do not want men who do not have college degrees. So if you have that many more women who are getting their college degrees and they're saying, but I want to be with somebody who has a college degree, and there's not a lot of those men who are available, then it's, I guess I'm single. You know what I'm saying? So this is kind of, there's a larger sort of societal price to be paid by not having men that are in college. Because some have definitely theorized that, part of the reason that there seems to be or appears to be a gender gap between men and women is because you have so many women who are out here trying to be upwardly mobile from an educational standpoint, and that if the men aren't on the same page, then they just not on the same page. And that has impacted relationships, marriages, lack thereof, all those things. It has a dramatic effect. So, really this college thing, goes even deeper beyond just trying to attain generational wealth and all those other sorts of things. It goes into what it's doing to our connectivity, between men and women. It's changing the connectivity, or some would argue is breaking it. And if that's the case, then, where does that leave us when it comes to these pursuits of like marriage and partnership and family and that kind of thing? All right, take this comment here from 702 Gambler. Educated women aren't deemed more attractive in the dating pool. Successful men want a woman who's compatible for reproduction and adds value to our life. She could work at a coffee shop for all we care. This is 1,000% true. 100% true. And some of me and my friends, we have had this conversation with each other 1,000 times, is that for as great as our accomplishments feel in terms of like, getting that promotion at work, running that business, doing all those things, when you are in the dating pool, and I ain't been in it in about 10 years, okay? But when you're in it in the dating pool, that's not impressive to me. Now, fellas, y'all can tell me if I'm lying. If I'm lying, I'm flying, as they say. But what we have accomplished is not something that you all necessarily find sexy on its own. Now, if we just are good looking and we also have this degree and run this business, y'all like, cool. But it's nothing, y'all not attracted to our accomplishments. And to some degree, it's sort of dismaying for women in many respects. It's like, it's dismaying because it's just like, well, I'm trying to be additive. So when you say bring something to the table, I'm bringing something to the table, right? Because I'm trying to be additive by saying that, like, I'm an independent person. I don't need you to support or maintain my lifestyle. I have that on my own. So it's just kind of like, okay, so where does that leave women who have accomplished things and are proud of those things that they accomplish? It's a good question. Because yes, men will absolutely date a woman, have no problem dating a woman who is not as nearly as accomplished as they are, who might be working something menial. As you know, it does not work the other way around at all. Now, this isn't all men. I know all of y'all are not built that way. So like, this isn't cookie cutter, but it is to say that for a lot of men, these accomplishments just simply don't mean anything. I got a lot of comments after I put that one up. So let me make sure that I put a few of them up. Okay. I'm not going to try to pronounce your screen name. I'm just going to read what you said. I'm guessing men just see the money behind how much a degree costs and how much the job that may not even use their degree pays. Women see college for enrichment, networking, and social opportunities. I would say that's fair. I would say that's more than fair. And that's what I was saying earlier about how when we talk about college, we don't sell the whole package. College is supposed to be transactional by nature. You're going there to get an education that will help you attain financial stability. That's sort of the root baseline theme of college. That's what you're supposed to do. But the other things that you can do in college are also additive to your life. And so that first thing that you said, women see college for enrichment. Enrichment can happen in a lot of different areas: social, emotional, maturity, all of those areas. That's what college brings you. And maybe because they're not tangible, men just don't see the benefit in doing that. They're just like, I just want to make money. Okay, I get it. But I think there's also, and I'll pull them up, perhaps just so again, y'all won't think I'm lying. But there is no question also that people who have college degrees make more money. They make more money. So even if you saw it as just strictly just for a financial benefit, you can still, that's kind of the point, is that if you don't have a plan after you graduate from high school, it's like, what do you imagine you're going to do? How do you imagine you're going to make your wealth? You can do that through, say, business ownership. But even if you do business ownership, wouldn't it be better to go to college to learn how to run a business, or learn how to learn a business somewhere? So it's like, maybe, for men, they just don't see enough of the tangibles when it comes to college. And there's a lot. All right. Here's another comment about the whole dating thing. I mean, I knew I just lobbed a grenade in there by bringing up how this impacts dating. But here we go. This is from Jay Starks. I think men mostly want to be attractive, physique, or sexual talents to the woman they date, marry more than anything else. When men are burnt out from financial responsibilities, that's when it changes. Well, see, that's what I'm saying, is that, like, perhaps for men, listen, I started this live talking about the economy and what these tariffs are about to do, which is they straining everybody's pockets. These tariffs are about to run all of our pockets, right? So, I'm not saying it has to be the factor, but like, I would not blame a man in the year of our Lord 2025 for looking at a woman like, financially, what you bringing to the table? Because have you seen what these grocery bills might look like? Like, that needs to be a shared responsibility. It is. And listen, women can say that I'm setting us back or giving away secrets from the game or whatever. But I think you would be pretty unrealistic to expect one person to be able to hold down an entire house by themselves in 2025. Like, that shit is a wrap. Like, no, you can't do that. If you do, you're going to kill that man. And so, I mean, I know what the messages that social media sends is, like, constantly, there's these constant arguing about responsibilities and household and head of household and who running. I'm like, I don't give a shit about all that. What I am saying is that, like, realistically, you need two incomes. Get it how you live. That might not be the most, that might not be what you envisioned, but that is reality. You need two incomes. So men, from that standpoint, y'all definitely need to be in college looking for somebody else that y'all can do this household thing together. I would think that would be a pretty big benefit. So, yeah. Oh man, see, I don't want to touch off a gender war here, guys. I really, really don't. B10s, women don't want to spend their money on men. My money is her money. Her money is her money. I mean, I wish I could say you were right, but I'm not gonna lie. There's more than a few of us that have a similar mentality or whatever. I remember my husband, when we were dating, but we were seriously dating at this point. And he was like, I noticed that when we go out to dinner, you don't never reach for the check. And I was like, I don't. And I just kind of left it there. No, just like with dates, especially first dates, women, I mean, I get it. It's 2025, but we really don't want to play for dates. We know this. Like, we can be real with ourselves. Like, we're not trying to pay for a date. Like, we're not. It's okay. We can let that we can let that one go. I mean, I heard a lot of women like, oh, if I asked him, I mean, if you ask him, that's a little different. Like, I understand that. But even then, there's a part of you that's hoping, as you slowly reach for that check, like, he ain't gonna really let me take this check, is he? There's a part of you that's hoping that. We don't like paying for dates. It is what it is. So, let me show this from Jessica. Exactly. Most of these conversations as what do you bring to the table? These men care about women's earnings. I think they care more because, again, this economy has, and it didn't just start in 2025. This economy has made it, the standard and cost of living has made that a reality. It's like, you better be asking what she does for a living or hoping she ain't at that coffee shop, because you asking for all kind of mental health strain and health issues if you trying to hold down a house by yourself, in a relationship or in a marriage. Like that's asking quite a bit, right now. But who needs college? Okay. You guys' comments they're really sending me. But at any rate, let me just say this as I prepare to wrap up here. I didn't want to keep you all. See, now, hold up real quick. See, William, you trying to start nothing. I didn't order any wine, so why I got to pay for it? Let's not get into the date debate. Well, I'm going to say that for another week. Let's not do this now. All right. Please, we already traumatized enough. We don't need another traumatizing who pays for what on a date conversation. So yeah. At any rate, I didn't want to keep you guys too long. I was trying to keep this to within, an hour. But what I will say to wrap up this conversation about the lack of Black men in college is that, I'm not here to at all downgrade or diminish or trade school at all. If that's the option that you take, that's the option that you take. But I do think that there's a lack of nurturing that is going on, and it has been for a long time. This didn't just start this year. I think that's just been kind of a reality and an issue for young Black boys and men, the lack of nurturing and support that they receive. It winds up translating in so many ways, in so many negative ways for them. And so at the educational level, I think it is incumbent upon us to build them up by inspiring them and instilling in them that their mind is just as valuable, if not more valuable. It's not just as valuable. Let me be clear. It's more valuable than anything that they can do physically. And when we see these young Black boys who need encouragement to continue to pursue things that are of an academic nature, we need to boost that confidence even higher, because again, it's something that people do to girls and women. Like they always encourage us to get our education and, raise boys with the same mentality y'all try to raise girls with, which is, getting your own and doing for self and all those kind of things. I mean, I was raised by a single mother, and that my mother told me that from the get-go, is that I had to do for myself, that there was nobody coming to save me. There wasn't no Prince Charming, wasn't none of that. And so I think that we need to make sure that our boys and men are receiving that exact same message. And they need to see more Black men who are in these academic professions or professions that require degrees, so that they understand that this is a good pathway for them. That there is something to be gained by going to college, and it's not just giving you that piece of paper that you need to get you to that job. It's a place where emotional and social development happens, where you learn about networking and learn about being in certain rooms, and you connect with classmates who go on to do great things, who later on down the line, if you need them, or you're able to have that link in common by saying like, oh, you went to such and such, so did I. Like it becomes that pathway for you. And so we need to continue to encourage, nurture, and build on, Black excellence. And it feels, it's unfortunate in some respects that typically the most lionized Black men in our community are athletes or entertainers. I hear positive stories all the time, but we need to maybe do more to amplify, those stories of just regular folks who wind up becoming doctors, who wind up becoming lawyers, who wind up becoming, really amazing professionals, business owners. We need to amplify those stories more often in our community, so that we can shift, you can shift the mindset, that they have. Because, while Black women and Black girls and Black boys and Black men go through similar things, there are some nuances to what we go through that are very different. And, all kids have to suffer from some level of self-esteem, but I think the self-esteem of our young Black people is just so fragile because of the numerous compounding messages they receive that plays upon their ability to fail. You know, we're sent the message early on about what we're not supposed to do, about where we're not supposed to be. And some of us are fortunate enough to experience and have much more counter programming that helps us overcome those messages. And some of us aren't. And what I would say, especially to Black men who are adults, who are grown, is that it's really those of you who have been able to attain a measure of success, I don't care what it is, it's super incumbent on you to reach back and give these young Black boys a picture that they can see what that family life looks like. They can see what that success looks like. They can see what excellence kind of looks like. It's incumbent upon all of those, but I think it's especially incumbent upon you all because you've gotten to that place that they can't see yet in their mind. So I hope going forward that we understand that there are some responsibilities that we all shoulder and we all carry. Go to college. It's fun. If anything, it is fun. Now, don't go there and trick off 4 years, all right? Don't do that. But it's fun. You know, one of, real quick before I end this, I love seeing my husband and his college friends get together. They all went to Michigan State. And, you know, the stories they tell, like this is a bond that they have for life. You know, they are talking about, things they did their freshman year, sophomore year, shared experiences. Like those are memories and emotional connections that you should want. And so, it reminds me of a different world. Like a different world. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but a different world was a big reason I wanted to go to college. Because that shit looked fun. You know what I'm saying? It's like, wow, you get to go somewhere, be on your own and navigate life. Like it looked fun to me. So I think, some of those things that we need to sell for sure. Anyway, thank y'all for joining me for What the Hell Wednesday, as in what the hell is going on, what the hell is happening, what the hell we got to look forward to. I thank y'all for joining me. I'm again going to do this every Wednesday, 3:00 Pacific time or specific time, if you will, while you're here. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. I hope to bring you lots more content. There's a lot of things to check out on this page. Make sure you check out my Roy Wood Jr. interview, which is on this week's episode of Spolitics. Got a new episode of Spolitics dropping tomorrow, or it drops tonight at midnight if you want to see it that way. The new episode of Spolitics, my guest is my man from ESPN, my homie, Kenny Mayne. He's going to be joining me. He has some amazing stories. He's funny as hell. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy that. So I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good Wednesday, and I'll see y'all next week.